Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, and we are here to talk Oklahoma football. 2 weeks. Not even that, 10 days. 10 days, 10 days, 10 days. 10 days until the Oklahoma Sooners kick off against the University of Texas El Paso Miners. And we all expect it to be a freaking ball beating, but I mean, at the same time, dude, you look so tired or allergied up. I don't even know what to say to you right now. Are you froze like that?
Yes, I'm froze like that.
Don't...
Let's just hope the majority of our listeners are listening as opposed to watching on the YouTube channel.
That was awesome. I'm sorry, I digress. I'm sorry, totally distracted.
One of these days, I will get the technological demons worked out of the system here in my home studio because
you might need to just get a new computer. So
I'm probably gonna have to at some point.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, they play UTEP. The week after that, they got Kent State. The week after that, they go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and play the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and Nebraska fans are very confident they're going to beat the Oklahoma Sooners this year. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I was listening to the rate. Well, they are in Oklahoma. I was listening to the sports animal. I don't do that a lot, but I turned it on today and just kind of.
You turncoat.
Yeah, well, I think you guys were on a commercial break, and so I just kind of flipped through as I was driving back. It was literally. No, that's not even what happened. I got off the phone with you, and ref was on a break, so I flipped over and I listened to them talk about. And there was like some Nebraska fan that I guess was on Traber's show and was like super confident, and Traber went all over him and like, dude, your guys aren't relevant. Why are you even talking trash to Oklahoma fan? It was just, I don't know. I don't know the whole story, but apparently they're confident. They feel good. They have Casey Thompson. You know what? Having Casey Thompson should give you confidence that your offense is going to be halfway decent. Like, he was a good quarterback for Texas. Their defense, Texas defense sucks. If you go look at Casey Thompson's stats, they were pretty good last year with no offensive line. And he played with a broken thumb from majority of the season. So, I mean, like,
you remember the week of the OU Texas game last year when we had Charles Thompson on the podcast, and he said, I hope Casey has the game of his life and loses a close ball game to Oklahoma. That's exactly what happened to a T. Casey threw for 448 yards and 5 touchdowns, no turnovers, and lost in the greatest game in the history of the rivalry.
Yeah. No, it was fantastic. And that's saying something because 2020 was also really just like spectacular with 4 overtimes. So they had back-to-back just miraculous. You know what? If you actually look back from like, I want to say 2016 to 2021, they've been really good ball games, like really close. You almost had the comeback victory with Kyler Murray in 2018 after being down 21. They came back, tied it up, and then they kick a field goal to win it. Or did Oklahoma go up? I can't remember the exact.
No, you tied it. They came back from down 45-24 to tie it at 45, and then Texas kicked the field goal at the gun. But yeah, the last time we had a double-digit game in the Cotton Bowl, pretty sure you got to go all the way back to 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
What was the 2015 score? Did Oklahoma lose by 10?
24-17, Texas won.
Okay. And then, so 2014, Oklahoma won by double digits. That's right. I remember Swope they were running Swope on like the goal line, and then they ran a couple of play action passes with him wide open in the end zone because everybody thought he was going to run because he couldn't pass to save his life. But I mean, you can pass if somebody's just standing there wide open with nobody within 30 yards of you.
I stand corrected. The last double-digit game between Oklahoma and Texas in the Cotton Bowl was 2013 when Texas won 36-20.
That was an upset because Oklahoma was supposed to be one of the best teams in the country at that point.
That was Mac Brown's last meaningful victory.
Mm-hmm. Blake Bell had an awful game. And then that season turned out to be really good, though, by the end of the year. They came – that defense, that Oklahoma defense that year was really good. They were a really salty defense. I mean, if you look back at who was on that team, you had, Alexander. You had Charles Tapper, Charles Walker. Oh my gosh, Chika Ndulue.
Aaron Colvin.
Aaron Colvin, Eric Stryker, Zach Sanchez, Steven Alexander,
Gino Grissom.
Not Steven Alexander. Sorry, Stephen Parker. Steven Alexander. Man. Stephen Parker, Gino Grissom. Whoa, that defense was loaded. That was a good defense, man. And 2015 was the last time Oklahoma fans really felt like they were dominant defensively throughout the season. And last year, I think they showed flashes of just pure dominance at times. And then they just showed flashes of just WTH, you know what I mean? Like, what is going on type stuff. So I think, and that's kind of what we're getting at here, people, is we were trying to get into the season talk. And I guess this is just as good as any kind of segue into the season talk is talking about last year's defense compared to this year's defense, because we don't know what this year's defense is going to be. But when you talk to people around the program, there's kind of a calm confidence of what they're going to do. Like, they feel really, it's a complex defense. It's complex, but the athletes, I mean, Parker and I were standing there by the safeties today at practice, and we both looked at each other and we were like, my God, these are giant human beings. Parker and I are tall guys. Like, we're not short people. We're both over 6 foot, and they make us look tiny. Like, it's just like, what is going on? I mean, and here's the crazy part. Robert Spears Jennings is as tall as Parker and I. And most people would consider him a long defensive back. And he's a small one compared to most of them. You have him, Billy Bowman, and Justin Broyles. Those are the short ones, and they're not even short. So, I mean, it's like that's how big those safeties, like Jordan Mukes, Justin Harrington, Key Lawrence, Bryson Washington. Who else am I forgetting that's just a tall, rangy safety?
Justin Harrington.
I said Justin Harrington. Did I not say Justin Harrington?
I don't think you did. I could be wrong.
If I didn't, that is the tallest of the tallest and the biggest of the big. So, but that's the point. Like, 5 of the 8 or 9 guys are like 6'2", 6. Well, they're probably 6'3" and above. So, oh my gosh, like, and that's what OU fans have been hoping for, Parker, for years. Like, where are these long athletic dudes? You look over at the cornerbacks and it's just the same thing. Josh Eaton, Woody Washington, DJ Graham, Kendall Dennis, CJ Colden, Kenai Walker. Like, these are some big dudes, like just big dudes. Like that, like you're not seeing, and obviously you have Jaden Davis, who's probably going to start, by the way, and he's 5'10", 5'11", but he's not, I'm trying to think of the short defensive backs that Oklahoma used to have that just got worked. You can't say Trey Brown. You can't say Trey
Motley got worked regularly.
He was like 6 foot though too. Yeah, he's 6 foot. Parnell Motley had a really good senior season, by the way.
Yeah.
Really? Didn't he have like 5 or 6 interceptions or something like that?
Not to my recollection. That would have been what, 2019?
I didn't think he threw on him very much. I don't know if he had 5 or 6. I just remember they didn't throw on him a whole lot his senior. Now, if you're talking about his junior year in 2018, yeah, he got worked a little bit. But he's a good NFL player now. So, I mean, like, It's weird how whenever they leave Oklahoma, they become good players on defense.
I know. Interesting. Interesting how that's played out time after time after time after time.
It's weird, dude. I don't know, man. But I don't know. So expectations this year for the defense. Let's do that. How do you feel about it? Like for me, I think it's I think I could see. I'm not expecting them to be like world beaters or anything like that, but I do expect them to be between top 20 and 35. I mean, is that realistic?
No, that is. And I think what you're going to get with Oklahoma in 2022, year one under Brent Venables, is you're going to get a solidly above average defense. It is probably not going to be elite right off the bat. This scheme is too intricate and there are too many moving parts. And when you consider the fact that everybody's only really had at most 8 months to ingest all of it, your expectations can't be that high right off the bat. But as we know from Brent Venables' track record, rock bottom for him in terms of his team's defensive ranks is pretty dang good by anybody else's standards. So, yes, absolutely. I would expect that Oklahoma flirts with top 25 status when it comes to total defense. And I think that's going to be a marked improvement from the defenses of years past at Oklahoma. And so here's the thing. I almost feel like it's going to be more impressive in the eyes of the fans than it actually is. I think when you look at the statistics at the end of the year, there will be a lot of folks that are surprised with how low Oklahoma ranks in many of those measurable categories. But I think that's just kind of the natural consequence of the advent of the Brent Venables era on the heels of what has been really a decade straight of largely atrocious defense at the University of Oklahoma. And there have been moments, there have been spells towards the end of the 2020 season. The Sooners were pretty good on defense. They could hold their own. They could win football games. But on the whole, when you look at the past decade, defensively, the Sooners have struggled and struggled mightily in general. That's going to change. And I think because fans are so accustomed to that being the standard, to that being the status quo, Venables' defense in year one is probably going to seem elite from their perspective. And I almost feel as though at season's end, the statistics aren't necessarily going to reflect the perception of this defense. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah. No, I think you hit a really interesting point whenever you said Brent Venables' lowest on the defense, or maybe his worst or down year on his defense, is better than what Oklahoma fans are accustomed to. And I think when you look back at even 2011, when Oklahoma fans, like, you're guilty, Oklahoma fans, you ran off the best defensive coordinator in college football in 2011. You did it. You pressured Bob Stoops into going after his brother. Go ahead.
But I don't think he was the best defensive coordinator in college football yet.
He was up there, though.
He was up there, no doubt. But Clemson is what helped Brent Venables turn the corner from good to elite as a defensive mastermind.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he went from focusing on. And he always had really good defensive lines at Oklahoma. Let's get that straight. When he was at OU, their defensive lines were good, and they were talented. There was always 2 or 3 NFL dudes on that defensive line. And even some elite like level guys. We've seen Tommy Harris, Dusty Dvorak, Gerald McCoy. I think a guy that nobody really talks about a lot that could have been so special was what's his name? Adrian Taylor. Was that the one that broke his leg, right? Against was Taylor his last name? His first name was Adrian. When he broke his leg against Stanford in the bowl game, the Sun Bowl in 2009. He was right next. It was him and McCoy, and they were just a deadly defensive tackle combination. Very similar to Dvorak and Tommy Harris. And so, and I'm probably missing the wrong last name, but I think OU fans, you know who I'm talking about. But he was, man, he was good, man. He was so good, and he was going to return. And there was like all this type of, oh my gosh, they're going to be good again in 2010. They have him returning. He's such an anchor in the middle. He's really good. And he snapped it, and he just never was the same. Like I remember he set out, came back, and he wasn't the same. He was, and obviously, I mean, he literally snapped his tibia and fibula in half. Like his foot was facing the other direction. And you know, and he had guys like Ronell Lewis, oh my gosh, Alexander, the defensive end that played for the Panthers for a few years. Frank Alexander.
Frank
That's what I'm thinking
Alexander.
of. Yeah, Frank Alexander. David King turned out to be a really good player by the end of his career. I mean, he just had guys, it seemed like every year on the defensive line, but I think he focused on being more aggressive and disguising things and really kind of pulling the wool over the quarterback's eyes as far as what type of look they were getting. He was always really intricate with his blitzes. He always was. Like that was his thing. Like you had the conservative guy in Mike Stoops, and you had the crazy blitz, you know, confusing the crap out of you type guy in Brent Venables. And they meshed well together when they did that. Well, when he left in 2003, you know, 2004, that Oklahoma defense was stout. 2005, that defense was good, but it was young. 2006, it was good. 2007, it was really good. 2008, it was very, very good. 2009, it was elite of the elite defenses. 2010, very good. But then they got a little young up front in 2011, and they had some really good defensive backs, and Tony Jefferson, and they had oh my gosh, that played for the Bears. Oh my gosh, Aaron Colvin, I think, was a youngster then. I remember watching him play in 2011. Played pretty well for Oklahoma. Oh my gosh. Anyways, they had several different defensive backs that were good. And they had really good linebackers and Travis Lewis and a couple other guys like Tom Ward. I mean, these were good players. And they were just a little young up front. They weren't deep as far as experience goes up front. They may have had starters that were decent and had experience, but they weren't deep. And Oklahoma fans didn't like how that year ended. I think Oklahoma ended up 11-3 or something like that at the end of the year, or 11-2. I don't remember the whole deal. They were number one. They were 6-0, and I remember everybody got hurt against Texas Tech after the rain delay, and they lost the game by 3. And it just kind of seemed to dwindle downhill after that. But he got the blame for that. Like they weren't blaming the offense, who struggled when you were rotating the Belldozer and Landry Jones. You know what I mean? Like it all went to Brent Venables for some odd reason, because everybody wanted that magic back that Mike Stoops had from 1999 to 2003. And when Mike Stoops showed back up, it just didn't have the same magic. And I think if Oklahoma fans, do you think they would do it all over again if they could?
Knowing what they know now,
Jamel Fleming, by the way, is the other corner I was thinking of.
I don't know, because here's the other thing you have to keep in mind. If you do it all over, do you still have the Baker Mayfield years? Do you still get Kyler Murray? Do you still get Jalen Hurts? Right? There are so many things that happened over the course of that decade in Sooner football
That's fair.
that probably don't happen if you change the narrative and keep Brent Venables around and you don't have
But
that.
what does that have to do with the offensive side, though? You know what I mean? Because Heupel still struggled in 2013 and 14, and that's what caused him to leave.
Sure, but how much of Heupel's struggle is mitigated by the presence of Venables? All right, for instance, like
because you're still winning
the
potentially because of
the last game, the last game that Heupel coached was the Russell Athletic Bowl against Brent Venables, right? So you can make the argument Brent Venables was the one that got Josh Heupel fired. That argument is dead.
He did. He went in dry. So
wow. Okay.
A little too much. I'm sorry. Anyways, finish your story.
I all that to say, I think most OU fans probably wouldn't, because you can replay it 1,000 times over and you can say, well, if Venables sticks around for that decade, then maybe they win a national championship, and maybe they do. But I think you lose so many cherished moments over the course of the decade that Venables was away from Oklahoma, not the least of which are the Baker Mayfield years and Kyler Murray's one-off campaign and chase for glory that culminated in the Heisman Trophy.
But Baker showed up with Heupel still OC. Because he was redshirting that, so he was probably still going to show up regardless.
True. I don't know.
But the other ones, I do agree with you with the Kyler Murray and the Jalen Hurts. I think,
and you have to wonder, and I know nobody wants to hear this. But you have to wonder if Baker's career would have turned out differently if he'd been coached by somebody other than Riley. Right.
Yeah. So, like, who would have coached him? I think that would have been the most interesting topic of all. Like, who would have been the OC if Riley didn't show up?
Yeah. So I think there's too many things that you know for sure you lose if you elect to keep Venables in Norman over the span of that decade. Like, there's too much. Yeah, like I said, too much that you lose, too much change, and too much history that goes out the window. And I honestly think most Sooner fans are pretty content with where they are right now, and they wouldn't have it any other way. Because, again, I think the decade at Clemson helped make Brent Venables into who he is today, not just as a defensive play caller, but as a head coach, as a person. And so I think most Oklahoma fans are content with the way things have unfolded, and it sucked for a while, especially that week where you didn't know what was coming next after Lincoln Riley took the SC job. But the end of it all, I think what you have been treated to over the last decade with Oklahoma football is you've had a perennial championship contender, with a few exceptions, right? 2014 was a terrible year. No way of sugarcoating that. But you have been as consistent as any program in college football, save for Alabama and Clemson, over the span of the last decade. And so I don't think you mortgage that away in order to try and retroactively score a national title under Venables. I think most Sooner fans are more than content with how it's all unfolded and with what the future looks like under a guy in Venables who has now not only cut his teeth at Oklahoma, coached in big games, coached in national championships there, but done the same elsewhere, and at a place where it was arguably a lot harder to accomplish that than it would have been at Oklahoma.
No, I think that's fair. So I guess where do you see them finishing this year? Like I said, I think between 20 and 35 is a realistic shot. And I think if you do that with Oklahoma's potential offense that they have, I think you're competing for maybe a playoff spot, maybe the Big 12 title at that. But I mean, and we'll get to the offense here in a minute, but where do you see that? Like, where do you see them finishing? And I guess the other question would be is, what do they have to do to take that next step if they're going to do it this year, year one, and be the Venables defenses that you've seen at Clemson? What do they have to do? Because we know they have it on defense. There's talents there on the D line, talents there at linebacker, talents there on the defensive back. But what has to happen?
I think it starts with pressuring the quarterback, and that starts with Ethan Downs and Marcus Stripling, which is why I've kind of circled those guys for quite a while as two guys that could have a massive trickle down effect on the rest of the defense by virtue of their individual performances over the course of the season. So that's where it starts. And if you think about what Venables defenses at Clemson have done over the years, that's kind of where it started for them too. The ability to pressure the quarterback, and in a more general sense, to play at an elite level up front. And I think the Sooners have a couple of key cogs on the interior in Jalen Redmond and Jeffrey Johnson that are capable of helping establish support against the run game and acting as the lane cloggers in the middle. And that's going to allow Downs and Stripling to make their hay off the edge. Maybe somebody like Reggie Grimes or Jonah Laulu has a breakout season that we haven't really accounted for yet. Maybe R. Mason Thomas forces his way onto the field a lot more than we're anticipating right now. And man, you cannot say enough about that kid and his performance in fall camp. Man, he has been impressive. Oh boy. I'm starting to believe that he could have more of an impact than any true freshman on this roster. Not just on the defense, but on this roster.
Jaden Gibson might have something to say about that.
Jaden Gibson will have something to say about that. Gavin Sawchuk and Javante Barnes will have something to say about that. But I just think, I don't think I know. Thomas has been that impressive that they're going to have no choice but to give him looks when the season opens. And it's all going to come down to what he does with those looks and how he stewards the opportunities that he is given. But that's another guy that has the opportunity to be very, very impactful, even as a true freshman in Venables' scheme. So it starts up front, and more specifically for me, it starts with pressuring the quarterback. I think they have the building blocks in place to be a top 25 defense. I believe that. Probably on the lower end of the spectrum in that regard, but I think they can crack the top 25.
So I'm with you on that. Because I think that the easy answer, and I'm glad you took it, is the pass rush and being able to stop the run up front. And I think that's obviously the defensive line is the anchor of any defense. Like that's a given, right? If you can't be good up front, you're going to get torched on the back end because the quarterback's going to have all day. There's going to be gaping holes for the running back to run through, or fullback, or the quarterback. It doesn't matter. They're just going to be able to do whatever they want to do against you. So, Oklahoma fans, you've seen that before. 2018. Do you want me? Let's pull up some film. Let's watch the gaping holes for you guys with a talented defensive line that was catching blocks. And so it's been seen before. I know I'm giving everybody PTSD until Ruffin McNeil showed up, but
yeah, that was a 5-7 football team plus Kyler Murray is what that was.
Talent-wise, it was a national title team, but schematically and fundamentally, defensively, on the defensive side, you're right, 5-7. Oh my gosh! But then you go and look at the NFL guys from that squad, and you're like, how in the hell did that happen? Like, how? Well, I think we all know. I'm not going to sit there and bash the person. We all know who it was. They waved the white flag a little bit after the OU Texas game in 2018 and exited stage left. So I'm not going to say the name. I don't need to. I'm not here to bash. But anyways, yeah, I think for me though, Oklahoma in 2022, outside of the front seven, I think how good Billy Bowman, Key Lawrence, and Justin Harrington is going to be a massive deal and where they can grow to. Because I think we all trust Woody Washington's going to be really good on his side, which means you got one side of the field potentially locked down, right? Like potentially locked down. The other side with Jaden Davis, with Kendall Dennis, it looked like was backing him up today, which was different.
How about that kid? How about that kid?
It's coming on. He's had a good fall camp.
Sees the field because he is. And
I want to.
I want to be fair to the kid. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say anything too grating. He has not been impressive his first 2 years on campus, not by a long shot, and he has not played a down, not just a meaningful down. He has not played a down yet in a game for Oklahoma. Now all of a sudden, today at practice, he's running a little bit with the twos. I like it. Mm-hmm. I like it. That's one of those things you love to see, because the more players you have make that quantum leap. And we've seen it with Justin Harrington. We've seen it with Jaden Davis. I think we're seeing it with Marcus Stripling too. The more players you see that make that quantum leap with the change in coaching staff, that just leads you to believe all the more that the turnover was for the better.
Yeah, no, Marcus Stripling in particular, because we were hearing potential transfer stuff before the bowl game with him. So, I mean, there just was a conflict of ideology, I'll put, between him and some other people. The change in the guard helped change his mindset, it helped change his mentality, and it helped for the betterment of the program, I think, just overall, because he has all the potential in the world. So, but as I was saying, like, you think Woody Washington's going to shut down. Jaden Davis, as a freshman and early in his sophomore year, aggressive. He just lost his confidence throughout the sophomore year in 2020, and last year just didn't do a whole lot. But CJ Colvin's another guy I think is good there. Kenai Walker, I think. Look, there, DJ Graham, but he's kind of backing up Woody Washington. So you feel really good about those two, right? As your 1-2 on one side of the field. Like, if he's out, you got DJ Graham, who's proven to be a good defensive back at times. So I think for me, it's the three safety spots. And I think, what are they going to do with Justin Harrington? He plays nickel, he plays free safety, he even plays some corner a little bit from what we're being told. Like, so he's everywhere because he's 6'3", 6'4", 225 pounds, and he runs a legit 4.3 laser time 40. Like, he's got freakishly fast feet, man. Like, he's a freak. He's a freak, and everybody and when you talk to people about him, everybody around the program, whether it's Brent Venables, whether it's people that you just talk to that watch him every day, they all say the same thing: certifiable superstar in the making. And he's got to live up to that. I think the hype of the offseason, he's got to live up to that. He cannot waver. And I think it's the same hype we heard about him. Remember when he first came in, Parker? I remember I'll never forget this. I get a call after, it was like day 3 or 4 of practice, right before, it was a day before he tore his ACL. And I get a call and they're like, man, we're going to be really good in the secondary this year. And I'm like, how? You're going to be young? Like, how? I mean, you got Trey Brown, you got Trey Norwood, and Trey Norwood didn't come on until the end of the year, or the middle of the year, mind you. So you had them. Who was the other corner outside of Trey Brown? It was Parnell Motley, right? 2020?
In 2020? No, Motley was in the NFL at that point.
Who was the other corner?
It was Trey Brown, Trey Norwood, Woody Washington emerged midway through the year.
Woody Washington. Okay, so
Jeremiah Cadell got some run.
Right.
DJ Graham actually was starting by the end of the year at cornerback. So it was constantly revolving door.
But they were young.
Norwood and Brown were kind of the two guys that were cemented there.
Yeah, so they were super young. And I was like, how? And they're like, dude, this Justin Harrington cat, he probably won't even play 2 years in Norman. He's going to be a first round draft pick. He's so fast. He covers well. He does everything well. And then he tears his ACL the very next day. So that to me, number one, I'm super happy for him that after everything he's been through, quitting the team, getting a second chance, and really just grasping it and taking it and running with it. Like the mercy Venables gave him, as he said, everybody deserves mercy sometimes. I think he has a chance to really transform. Also, we keep hearing that Billy Bowman will be an All-American before he leaves Oklahoma as well. And I think you have to feel pretty good about the safety spot starting wise, but I think depth outside of Key Lawrence and Justin Broyles. Yeah, I said it. I said Justin Broyles. Justin Broyles, I think
you're not allowed to speak that name, Brandon.
I know.
The fans will crucify you.
And that's another guy that took a big leap last year. I mean, the way he played at the last half of the season last year was what everybody hoped of him earlier on. But everybody wants to just harp on the Peach Bowl. I mean, in the LSU, which get over it, folks. He's not that same person, by the way. He's a different player. He's older. But my point is I think the safety position is going to be, wow, voice crack, is going to be very critical for Oklahoma, especially because of the depth situation. Like, I don't expect just Jordan Mukes to play a whole lot this year. Like, he's been up and down, but I've spoke to people and they think that 2023 is going to be his year of that coming out party. I expect the same out of Robert Spears Jennings. So you need, number one, safety position to stay healthy. Number two, they need to live up to the hype. The starters, Key Lawrence, Justin Harrington, Billy Bowman, they need to live up to the hype. So I think if that happens, along with what you said, the front seven, I think that's where you take that jump from being between 20 and 35 to maybe a top 15 to 20 defense, that little bit better. And you get in that top 20 range, and now you're talking national title competing defenses at that point. So I think for me, that's where everything kind of sits on the defensive side of the ball, because I think the chemistry's there. This team is probably the most loving and caring team for one another that we've covered so far. Particularly, it's off season, but I think with the soul mission, I think I can't see them falling off. It's very similar to how Clemson operates, obviously. So I don't know, but offensively, Parker, Jeff Lebby's first season, new quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. No Caleb Williams, obviously. He's at USC. So what are your expectations? Do you think Dylan Gabriel plays more than one season? Because if he comes back in 23, that's where the hype for Oklahoma competing for a national title really starts to take hold. Because if you look across the board, Oklahoma, they're young, man. They are young. Offense and defense, young.
Yeah. Well, I think for Dylan Gabriel, what it's going to boil down to more than anything is how close do you feel like you are after 2022? Because I think most would agree, if we're being realistic, Oklahoma's not going to win a national championship this year. But if
you're wrong,
Gabriel,
Parker,
if you're Dylan Gabriel and you're evaluating your options at this time, well, not necessarily at this time of year from now, because at that point you're in a preseason camp again, but 6 months from now, if you're Dylan Gabriel and you're evaluating your options and considering your future, a couple things you got to take in mind here, or keep in consideration here. One, there is a very deep class of quarterbacks that is preparing to graduate and move on to the NFL. We are talking about CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Spencer Rattler, Will Levis, Tyler Van Dyke, Grayson McCall. I can go on. You get the picture. The point
1984 deep. Yep.
Very, very deep quarterback class. So if you're Dylan Gabriel and you have a prolific season, in Norman and you put up 4,000 passing yards and you throw for 40 touchdowns and you're pleased with your individual performance and the Sooners win double-digit games, that's all fine and well. And perhaps you feel you've done enough as a collegian to take your game to the next level and be able to be competitive at the next level. But you're going to look at the circumstances around you. You're going to say, okay, not only can I run it back at Oklahoma and legitimately have the opportunity to compete for a national title, because so many of these other programs on OU's level across the country are going to lose key pieces. That's another thing to keep in mind. A lot of those programs are going to lose key pieces too, not just quarterbacks, other key pieces. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have the opportunity to come back to Oklahoma. And if all goes according to plan in 2022, this is a program that's probably going to step into the offseason feeling like they have the opportunity to be in the title hunt in 23. Mm-hmm. Dillon Gabriel is going to have the opportunity to be the guy for another year if he wants to take advantage of that opportunity. And if I'm Dillon Gabriel and this 2022 season plays out as we expect it to, and Young / Stroud / Rattler et al., none of those guys see their draft stock completely slashed, and you're entering a situation in which you're probably not a top 5 draft eligible quarterback, even with a Heisman caliber season, I think it makes a lot of sense for Dillon Gabriel to come back to Norman for another season in 2023. And at that point, you are entering your 5th year as a starter, which is pretty uncharted territory. Uncharted territory.
And he has 2 years. He has 3 years left still. That's the weird part about all this.
So he could, he could be a 6-year starter if he really wanted to. Yep. But all that aside, the point is, I think Gabriel is going to have a very intriguing choice to make a few months from now. And he's going to be able to get drafted. I believe that. Regardless of how deep this class is, Gabriel is talented enough that he will be able to get drafted. But do you want to go battle for an NFL roster spot as a 5th or 6th round draft pick? Because that's how deep this class is. Best case scenario, maybe you're a 3rd round guy if everything goes your way and you're in New York at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Do you want to take your chances in the NFL in that fashion, or do you want to come back for another season, make another run at a national title, and then be able to be in the conversation as one of the top quarterbacks off the board in the 2024 class? I would say right now, as we sit here tonight, the evening of August 23rd, 2022, there is a more compelling case for Dillon Gabriel to stay for a 5th year of college football rather than go to the NFL. Much can change, and I freely acknowledge that. But if this season plays out the way we expect it to, I don't think this conversation looks much different than everything I just laid out 5-6 months in the future.
Can I throw another thing out there that may help him stay?
Sure. Go ahead.
This little acronym that everybody throws around a lot. It's called the NIL. And NIL is going to have kids stay in college longer than normal in some instances. And I think Dillon Gabriel is going to be one of those because, look, he is what he is. He's a 5'10", 5'11" quarterback that he has some deficiencies, or at least right now we feel he has deficiencies. And it could be because of the offensive line play at UCF. It could be the fact he didn't have the receivers that he's going to have at Oklahoma. Like, there is a talent discrepancy. So when you're making throws, or you're having to make reads faster than normal because of the lack of protection or whatnot, I mean, those things play into who you are as a quarterback, even though it's not who you are, if that makes sense, as far as talent goes. So but I don't know that he is ever going to be that first round guy. He may be a late second, early third round guy, like topped out, because that's just who he is. And I'm not saying he can't be a first round. I'm just saying right now, I don't feel he will be that guy, even with a great year. So having said that, if you're making this money NIL wise, and he's making quite a bit, we all know that he's taken the whole team, basically, offense, defense, O-line, skill position guys, to dime time retreats and stuff like that. Yeah, you don't do that if you're not making a bunch of money NIL wise, because that's expensive crap to pull off with as many people as he's bringing all at once. And he gets custom made shoes, all these. He's got all these different things going on for him. And yeah, he's got a lot of NIL deals rolling in for him, because he's kind of he's got a magnetic personality, and people gravitate towards him. I can tell you guys a story, and I'll tell it here on why I feel that way. Is we're at the little kids camps. My oldest is competing. My youngest sees Dylan Gabriel, and he walks over to him and he says, "Hey, Dylan, are you the quarterback at Oklahoma?" And Dylan kneels down and says hello. Well, at this point in time, my oldest gets pulled out of the little Sooner games that they're doing, because he was kind of their all-time quarterback or whatnot, and they were on defense. So he walks over to talk to Dylan as well. And Dylan kneels down. And he's talking to the boys about what they do and their quarterbacks, and he's a quarterback and all kinds of stuff. And finally, my youngest goes, "Can I have your autograph on my shirt?" And Dylan turns around and goes, "Only if you sign your name on my shoes." And Kyler goes, "Well, I don't know how to do cursive." And so Dylan takes his hand and takes the initial KD and puts it on both of his shoes. And so we come back the next day to finish out the camp, and he still has KD on his shoes. Come back a week later, and I'm covering you saw it, Parker, covering the older kids camps. He still has KD on his shoes, and he never took it off. And he'd always walk up and say, "Hey, I still got KD on the shoes," blah, blah, blah. So he still wears those shoes. And I think that's just kind of who he is, why people gravitate towards him. He does things like that because that's the person he is. And that's an easy sell if you're NIL, if you're a company and you're wanting to sell your program or your company, right? You find Dylan Gabriel, who is this magnetic personality that everybody gravitates to, and you can sell it. Therefore, you're going to be able to stay in college longer if you don't feel like you're going to make enough money, because the guaranteed money, being 4th, 5th, 6th round guy, he may make more NIL than he's going to make getting drafted there. And I think that is where you're going to start seeing some of these juniors who may have normally left early for 4th and 5th round picks, 6th, 7th round picks. They're going to stay. They're going to stay. And they're going to wait till their senior year, and they're going to double dip in their NIL game and make money, and then maybe make less when they go to the NFL for a little bit. But the point is I think it's going to up the college game. And for Oklahoma in 2023, that would obviously up them, because they're going to have a returning quarterback who's been in Levy's system for the majority of his career outside of one season. So he's going to know it like he knows the back of his hand. So I think it's big. Plus, you have Jackson Arnold coming in. Wouldn't that be great if you're Oklahoma to have him sitting behind and learning behind Dylan Gabriel and Davis Beville? Would that not be great? Look, think about the depth that you go from this year. Your third string quarterback is a freshman, obviously, and Nick Evers, right? The 2024 quarterback competition, Davis Beville, Nick Evers, Jackson Arnold. That would be, for us, Parker, that would be media heaven, by the way.
Don't neglect Booty. either.
Well, I'm not neglecting him. He's just had a very rough time adjusting to P5 level speed right now. He's had a rough camp, but he's still talented. He's still talented. Everybody's got him. But do you really believe that Jackson Arnold or Nick Evers isn't going to be the starting quarterback in 2024?
Okay, that's fair. Point taken.
Come on.
Point taken.
All right. But again, but I think for me, like, where do you think, Parker, where do you think this offense sits at the end of the year as far as rankings, where they are, total offense? Where do you think they sit? I think they're top 10.
I think they're top 10. That is exactly what I was going to say. I think they're top 10 too. Yeah.
So you're not going to see much of a drop off, folks. You may even see more consistency than you saw last year offensively.
This is the one caveat I added because we were having this conversation on an OU Insider VIP thread. I said, the one thing I will say, the one aspect where you may see a drop off is you may not see as many points scored as you have in years past, but that's going to be because this offense doesn't need to score as many points as they have had to in years past. They're not going to need to score 51 and 56 and 59 points to win football games the way that they did in 2018 and 2019, right?
Right.
That's not going to be the new normal in Norman. A lot of ends in that sentence. But this offense is probably going to score a little bit less because they're going to be able to score a little bit less.
So who do you think is Dylan Gabriel's the easy answer? So excluding him, what do you think the key is for Oklahoma outside of Dylan Gabriel staying healthy for them to have that season offensively? Because for me, I think the easy answer is offensive line play.
Yeah.
And we're excluding those two. So what position, running back, tight end, wide receiver, outside of the two obvious ones, O-line and quarterback, and them being healthy, what do you think they have to do to be that top 10?
Can I throw you a curveball and say tight end? Because I'm bullish on Braden Willis heading into 2022. And I think that is one aspect of Oklahoma's offense that, regardless of who's calling the plays, has remained constant over the years. You have seen production from the tight end position, whether it's been christened tight end or H-back under Lincoln Riley, right? But you think back to some of the great and most prolific offenses that Oklahoma has had over the last couple decades, those generally featured tight ends that had outstanding productive seasons, whether that was somebody like Jermaine Gresham or Mark Andrews or more recently Austin Stogner. And so the tight end has always been a cornerstone of Oklahoma's passing attack. And they're one of the few programs across the nation that still regularly employs the tight end in their offense and employs him to great success. And that guy is Braden Willis in 2022. I'm very excited to see. And I know the coaching staff as well is very, very high on him heading into the season. He's going to be the guy at that position. Daniel Parker will spell him, especially in obvious running downs, because Parker's a bit more of a natural blocker than Willis is. But as far as pass catching, you're looking at Braden Willis as being the main guy at the tight end position. And I really do think he's going to have a career year and then some.
I'm going to go running back. I think we all think, in particular, Parker and I think the wide receiver position is just absolutely loaded and talented. Like, they're going to make plays. Farouk, Stoops, Mims, Gibson, Weiss, Anderson. Like, I just named 6 guys off the top of my head that are going to be very good players for Oklahoma. And I'm sure I missed somebody. Gavin Freeman. I mean, like, these are dudes. Like, he's a freshman. He's really good. He's a walk-on, but he's going to be a guy at Oklahoma. For me, though, I think how Eric Gray plays and how Marcus Major, Gavin Sawchuk, and Javante Barnes spell him is going to be massively significant for Oklahoma's offense this year. If in particular because you're kind of running that version of Baylor's offense. Remember, they always had that running back that just seemed to be one of the I just lost a light. My light went out, but they always have that guy, that is very, very good, is very, very explosive, and runs for 1,500 yards back in the Art Briles days, right? And so you want to have that type of production, but they also had guys that could spell them and would run for 500-600 yards and just had that speed, that change of pace, whether it was power or just quickness. It didn't matter. They were so well rounded at running back under Baylor, and in the same token at UCF under Levy and at Ole Miss. So I think for me, I think it's the running back position. I think if Gray can have 1,200 yards this year, and I think that's realistic. I mean, 1,100-1,200 yards. I think it's realistic.
More than realistic.
Yeah. So I think if he does that, number one, his stock is going to skyrocket. And instead of coming back and being that super senior, he's going to be able to go on and play in the NFL. But that's kind of what he hopes to do anyways. He wants to be gone after this year. I want to see what Marcus Major does, because you talk to everybody. If he can just be consistent, if Marcus Major can be consistent, if he can be consistent, he's got all the tools to be one of the greats. All the tools to be one of the greats. You roll that over to Gavin Sawchuk. We were talking to a guy that's been to every practice this year, and he said, man, is he explosive. He is a rocket. And we watched him during the W drill. Never gets touched. He has vision. He has speed. He has elusiveness. He's put on weight. He's up to almost 200 pounds now. And I think that is key for him moving forward as a freshman. I don't know how much run he's going to get, but he's going to get some playing time. I think Javante Barnes will too. I think the two guys that nobody really talks about that has a chance to really, really shock some people at the running back spot, Ventavious Thompson, Tawee Walker. And I wouldn't be shocked if Tawee Walker is not the goal line guy, just because he's a tough, rugged runner.
He is that
bowling
guy.
Ball. Yeah. I mean, he's a bowling ball. He's little, but he's built like a Mack truck. So look, and Ventavious Thompson, he knows the offense. He played under Levy. He was successful under Levy. So there's a comfortability for him there. And Levy brought him up himself when we asked about it. He brought up Ventavious Thompson. So did Brent Venables. So I think the running back position being so deep and what DeMarco Murray has done there, if they can be as productive as their talent is, I think that is going to push that Oklahoma offense into a spot to where maybe they could be a top 5 by the end of the season. And if they are top 5 and they do have a top 25 to 35 defense, I think you're talking playoffs at that point.
Yeah, that's a playoff team.
Yeah. I think you're talking playoffs. So we'll see. All right. Prediction record off the top of your head. We'll go through next week. We're going to go through each game and say why we think it's a win or loss and kind of give our prediction on it. This is preseason predictions, meaning we're kind of going on the fly, just kind of predicting off what we've heard. But in a generalized sense, Oklahoma has this record at the end of the year, and this is why.
11-1, because I think from a talent and coaching standpoint, they're on a higher level than anybody else in the Big 12, save for Baylor. And I think they drop a game along the way. I don't think it's a flawless campaign for Brent Venables and this team in the regular season. I don't know where that loss is. Easy answer is Baylor, but I think as we sit here today, much can change. It's a home game. That's probably a coin flip. There's always one loss along the way. right? Going undefeated in the regular season is such a difficult thing to do in college football. There will be a loss somewhere along the way. I just couldn't necessarily point you to it right now as I look at this schedule and say, yep, that's the game. It's happening. I just know it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Do they win the Big 12?
Yes. Yes, I think they win the Big 12.
Okay. Okay. Do they make the playoffs?
That's where it gets iffy for me. Because if they
11-1 always makes it iffy. It depends on the scheduling.
Well, and it not only does it depend on the schedule, but it depends on the other conference champions across the country. And here's the thing. I really like Utah. I think Utah is going to be a one-loss conference champion out of the Pac-12 if I had to prognosticate. So you may have a Pac-12 champion legitimately in the mix for a playoff berth for the first time since 2016. If Clemson is as advertised, and I think it's going to take a quarterback switch from DJ Uiagalelei to Cade Klubnik to get them there. But if they're as advertised, I think they'll be in the hunt. Obviously, you're going to have at least 2, if not 3 SEC teams in the hunt because that's just the norm in the SEC. And then you're going to have an Ohio State team that legitimately has the firepower to run the table and go 13-0 by the time the playoffs roll around. I hate to say it, but a 12-1 season with a Big 12 title does not guarantee Oklahoma's in the college football playoff.
No, I agree because it's never guaranteed. I do think if it gets down between them and a Pac-12 team, it's always going to be the Big 12 team because of the harder schedule and the deeper conference, the better conference. And then if Nebraska can be a 6 or 7, 8, win team this year, that helps Oklahoma's stance as well. So, I think Oklahoma is going to be. I said 10-2 or 11-1 to everybody, but I've got to pick one here. I'm gonna say 11-1 with you. I think they are 11-1. I'm like you. I don't know where that loss comes from. Is it at Iowa State? Is it Kansas State at home? They always kind of slip up against them. Is it Texas Tech late in the season in Lubbock? I mean, night game
That's
probably.
Not a gimme.
It's not a gimme. Is it Nebraska and Lubbock? I mean, there's a few. Baylor, Texas. I mean, Oklahoma State. Like
the one that doesn't get talked about either is TCU. That's going to be a tough football game.
I think that's where the loss will be if it happens. I think it's going to be at TCU. And so I do think Oklahoma wins the Big 12. I think that's like, yeah, Baylor won it last year, but let's talk odds here. Since 2010, Oklahoma won in 2010. They won it in 2012.
No, Kansas State won it in 2012.
No, they didn't. Okay, I thought. What year did they?
They might have split it. They might have split it that year.
I feel like they split somebody somewhere. Was it 2013 they split it?
It was Baylor it was Baylor in 2013 and then Baylor and TCU split it in 2014. Then it was obviously
there was a year that there was a split. Like it may have been 20. Who won in 2011?
2011 was Oklahoma.
State. Yeah.
Oklahoma State. Yeah.
So I think it was 2010 that Oklahoma split it. I think with TCU maybe.
No, 2010 was the last year of the Big 12 championship game.
They beat Nebraska in 2010. 2011 was Oklahoma State. 2012, I think they split it with Kansas State. Is that right?
That's probably that tracks.
Okay. So anyways, but they won it in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. So 5 years. They won it 6 years in a row, right? So you're looking at what is it? 8 of the last or 9 of the last 12 years, Oklahoma's won the Big 12. So the odds are looking pretty good that if you're going to pick somebody, you want to pick Oklahoma because that's normally what happens. Kind of like Alabama in the SEC. Odds are they're going to win the SEC. Like that's just what happens. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma. As far as playoffs go, I never really thought Oklahoma was a playoff team this year. But there's a lot of people talking Utah, and I don't think Utah is going to go undefeated. So
no, I don't think they'll go undefeated either. But
no, if it gets down between a 1-loss Oklahoma and a 1-loss Utah, Oklahoma's getting in. So I'll pick Oklahoma in the playoffs. I think it's going to be Oklahoma, Ohio State, Alabama, and Clemson. And I think, oh, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? Dabo versus Venables semifinal. I want to see it.
Don't we all?
They're both running the same defense. Oh my gosh, it would be awesome. All right, let's I think Alabama's going to win the national title this year. This is one of the greatest teams of all time. The way they have it loaded up this year. Let's talk about recruiting real quick. Obviously wide receiver recruiting's the hot thing right now before we close out this podcast. And Anthony Evans is looking to make a decision. And for the longest time, Parker, Anthony Evans in Oklahoma looked like a done deal. It looked like it was gift wrap for Oklahoma. And then iPad Gate happened.
Oh, is that what we're calling it now?
I wasn't going to call it anything else other than iPad Gate because, okay, racial gate. What do you want to call it?
I was going to say Gundy Gate rolls off the tongue nicely.
Gundy Gate is a better way. Yeah, Gundy Gate. There you go. Gundy Gate happened. And
racial gate.
I mean, that's what he said, right? Like, I mean, he said something that he shouldn't have said. Period. So, I mean, I don't know. I was trying to make a joke, but I don't know what like looking back at that.
Okay.
Anyway, so
Anthony Evans.
Yeah, Anthony Evans, that guy. So the point being is that look, it looked like it was gift wrap. Gundy Gate happened with an iPad, and some things said that should never have been repeated or read off the iPad, and he was removed from the program. And whether we, feel that was the right thing, wrong thing, that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. But when you first talked to Anthony Evans and you saw, I showed you, he was like, oh yeah, I trust LaDamian Washington. That's my guy. We were close. He was one of my lead recruiters. He helped Gundy out all the time. And then you kind of hearing buzz and more buzz about Georgia and everything. And you kind of started hearing maybe Oklahoma doesn't talk to Anthony Evans as much as they once did, or much as Gundy once did. And then things kind of turned sour. And now we kind of feel like it's very much so trending as we sit here on a Tuesday night towards Georgia. Having said that, Parker, as of Sunday night, Oklahoma, the big guns are after Anthony Evans. You have Jeff Lebby. You have Brent Venables. You have everybody and their dog calling him, talking to his family and him, trying to make this thing work. So
now all you need is Valerie from The Princess Bride in the background going, have fun storming the castle.
So I guess, what do you think the odds are, percentages, Dean Blevins wise? Different breed of cat. What do you think?
60-40 in favor of Georgia right now.
No, I know. What do you think the odds are that Oklahoma can pull this off?
The odds that they can pull it off? 40%. Like, I don't think Georgia's out of the woods by any means. I think they've taken the lead. I don't think they're out of the woods.
I agree.
As you mentioned,
I agree.
You got Jeff Lebby and Brent Venables now into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
You're rolling in all the artillery, not going down without a fight. Because, look, if you get Anthony Evans, you don't have to worry about the wide receiver position anymore. You're done. Like, your entire offensive board is done outside of Malachi Coleman. And if Samson Okunlola wakes up one morning and decides, my goodness, screw it all, I want to be a Sooner, then you'll take him too. But at that point, you're done with your offensive board, except for one additional ad at the tight end position, which you hope is Malachi Coleman. So you'd like to not have to deploy plan B at the wide receiver position, whether that is somebody like Micah Tease or Mikhail Harrison Pilot or somebody that isn't even on the board right now. They haven't even offered, somebody that becomes a late cycle target for Oklahoma. So if you don't get Anthony Evans, then I will be very curious to know what the backup plan looks like at that point. There's a variety of different avenues that Oklahoma could explore, but in a perfect world, you get Evans, and that way you can just focus all of your efforts down the stretch on closing on Coleman, stealing him from out of Nebraska's backyard, and then rounding out your class on the defensive side of the football. You're going to have a top 5 class right now if things hold, barring catastrophe, and you have the potential to put together a top 3 class. It all comes down to how you close now. Always be closing.
Point to the chalkboard. Yeah, I agree with you on that. So if they don't get Anthony Evans on Friday, if you were a betting man and I said you have to lay $1,000 down on this person, who do you lay your odds on?
Micah Tease, probably. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
That feels like the safe answer. Right. You know, like there's so much history there. There's relationships. There is a ton of mutual interest. It just, the falling out came because Oklahoma wanted Tease to play defensive back and Tease wanted to play wide receiver. Well, if you turn around and say, hey, come play wide receiver, you really think he's not going to at least listen and listen hard?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's probably the way. I mean, Caden Lee, I don't know that they want to wait on Michael Harrison Pilot to announce in January. I just can't see them waiting around for that. So
if they didn't
want to
do
that, just go get a transfer.
Exactly. Like if they didn't want to wait in June, which they didn't, what makes you believe they're going to want to wait in September?
They're not.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, I think Micah Tease is probably the safest bet there. I think, man, wouldn't it be interesting if they try to go get Ashton Kozart again?
That's an interesting flavor of full circle.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Interesting. Who knows? All right. But I guess there's another announcement happening this week, though, before we close this podcast out real quick. Yeah. Makari Vickers, 2023 4-star defensive back out of Tallahassee, Florida. It's been down between 3 schools, but really 2 schools. He even said that to us. It's 3 schools, but I'm really only down to 2 schools. I mean, publicly 3, it's really 2. So, it's Alabama, Oklahoma. We both have crystal balls in for Oklahoma. If Oklahoma can pull that off and they beat Alabama head-to-head again, they win against Jacoby Johnson. They're going with Jordan Renaud, which is we'll talk about on another podcast. Yeah, I that's huge. That shows the people, the OU fans, the difference in Venables recruiting defense than previous staffs.
I mean, if you get Makari Vickers, at that point, you are looking at 7 composite top 100 players. And you got a long way to go yet. You got DJ Hicks still on the board. You got Cecilia Kana still on the board. You got Jordan Renaud still on the board. We talked about Malachi Coleman. Am I forgetting anybody? You got, heck, Peyton Bowman still out there. And we're all wondering when we get a final decision from him. But you could have, like, if everything breaks your way, you could have a dozen of the top 100 players in the country. That's astronomical. Because the most that Oklahoma's ever signed in the modern recruiting era in a single class is 5. 5. They already have 6. They're looking for 7 this weekend when Makari Vickers announces. And
if he does announce it's top 5 for Oklahoma, by the way.
And when was the last time, Brandon, that the Sooners went and got a defensive back of Makari Vickers' caliber from anywhere outside of Oklahoma or Texas? Honest question, because I don't know offhand.
I don't know.
I can't think of the last time they signed a top 100 defensive back that was not from one of those 2 states.
You said Oklahoma or Texas?
Yeah.
What was Jaden Davis ranked?
Like 200 something.
What about Woody Washington?
Woody Washington was right around 150, I believe.
Well, what about Jeremiah Cradell?
Jeremiah Cradell was 120, I think. The point is, I would have to look back.
Those are the only 3 I could really honestly think of. Yeah.
You'd have to do some pretty extensive research to find the last time Oklahoma signed a top 100 defensive back, period. Well, I can think of the last time was 2017 when they had Justin Broyles and Robert Barnes, but Oklahoma guy, Texas guy. So you got to go further back than 2017. I know that much. So for Brent Venables and his staff to do something like that in year 1, again, it's another one of the marks of excellence that you add to this staff's resume as far as what they've been able to accomplish in their very first year at the University of Oklahoma. Because
Brendan Rowlett Buki.
Oh, Buki, that's right. I forgot about Buki. All right, I'll take the L on that one. Buki.
Sorry, it just came to my head, and then I had to go look it up. I was like, I forgot Buki was really high. Yeah, but you're right. You're right. Still, it's miraculous what Venables has done, what they've been able to accomplish on the recruiting trail. Just the fact that they're dipping down into Florida, Georgia, they're going out to California and landing big time guys. They're just anywhere they want to go, they have a chance to pick up whoever they want right now. I mean, that's the type of recruiting the confidence Oklahoma Sooners fans should have right now should be very strong for Venables and his staff on the recruiting trail. And if they pull off an 11-1 season like Parker and I just said, and they win the Big 12, it's only going to get better, folks, because people are going to think, oh, here they go. That defense was really good this year. They're going to start producing guys. That offense was really good. There's going to be a level of confidence with high school kids, with high school coaches, that is going to allow Oklahoma to really take that next step. I mean, look, they're going to be, if they land Makari Vickers on Friday, as things sit here on Tuesday, Oklahoma jumps to number 5 in the composite rankings. If they somehow can pull somebody else off between then and now, I mean, between, September 19th when Renaud is there and now, I think there's a good chance that Oklahoma moves up even higher, maybe 3 or 4. I mean, they have a chance to have a top 2 or 3 class Like that's still out there if they can close in on these guys, but they got to close some of these guys out. Anyways, look, we talked about a lot of things on here today, but we have so much information on OU Insider. Like there is what, 4 different, 5 different practice team notes, VIP notes pinned on the board right now. And I mean, they're lengthy. They're not just little quibs. They're lengthy, in-depth talk of the team. Very in-depth. We have source information like nobody else, and we take pride in that. We're very prideful of that. We're very honored to be able to do that. And we love bringing you guys, you Oklahoma Sooners fans, that information. Super blessed to be able to do that each and every day. Like we love it. And then I would say we even take greater pride in how good we are on the recruiting trail. Like Parker and myself will be gone all weekend. Like I leave Thursday morning, I go to Denton, I go cover Jackson Arnold, Peyton Bowen, Ryan Yates, and Eli Bowen. I go cover their game. I leave that night, stay the night in Dallas, wake up the next morning, drive to Katy, Texas, and I go watch David Hicks play his first ball game of the season as well, a 5-star defensive lineman out of Katy Paytel. Parker is going. Where are you going? Go ahead and talk about your week real quick before we leave.
Yes, Thursday evening, I will be in the illustrious town of Sulphur, Oklahoma, watching a scrimmage between Sulphur and Durant. Durant, of course, a program that here in 2022 features 2024 4-star defensive lineman Zadavian Sims, who's very high on Oklahoma, and 2026 edge rusher Colton Yarbrough, who before he's ever taken a snap at the high school level already has several Power 5 offers. So those two will be of particular interest over the next few years on the OK Prep circuit. I'm going to go check them out. And then Friday night, I'll be at the game that maybe is the game of the week across the entire country at the prep level, which is Allen High versus St. John Bosco. That's going to feature 4-star 2024 quarterback Michael Hawkins, priority target for Oklahoma at the QB position, going up against a loaded Bosco squad that features the likes of Louisville commit Pierce Clarkson, 2024 4-star defensive back Peyton Woodyard, a guy that Oklahoma has offered. Hasn't been a whole lot of buzz about him in OU, but he was on an unofficial with Oklahoma in June. Yeah. And then, of course, Allen's got firepower of their own to contrast that with 2025 tight end Devon Mitchell, a guy that already holds an Oklahoma offer. And then their other big name calling card guy on the defensive side of the ball is 5-star 2024 edge rusher Zena Amozola. Did I say that correctly?
Umeozulu.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Is that what we're going with?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Umeozulu.
I think it's Umeozulu.
Okay. The point is, 5-star guy in the 2024 class. So a lot of talent on both sides of the ball in that game for both Allen and St. John Bosco. Saturday, I will be at Temple versus McKinney. That is a game that features Mikhail Harrison Pilot, the guy we talked about. He's the meat and potatoes, that Temple offense. And then on the McKinney sideline, you have 4-star 2024 athlete Brian Jackson II, who has Oklahoma among his top 10 that he just dropped a couple of weeks ago, as well as fast rising and blazing fast 2024 wide receiver Xavier Filsheim, who recently picked up an Oklahoma offer as well. So those are the games that I will be hitting on this inaugural weekend of high school football in the year of our Lord 2022.
Yeah. And then obviously the next week I will be at, I got to pull it up now because I don't remember everywhere I'm supposed to be. I am going to be Converse Judson versus, obviously, I don't know if that's going to stand. Like, I want to go watch Vasek, but I feel like I could get closer maybe, or maybe just get Austin instead of San Antonio. but it's going to be Anthony Evans versus Colton Vasek. Originally, that was when Oklahoma was leading for Anthony Evans. That was my plan. Pretty cool. And then obviously on the 9th, I'm going to watch Jordan Renaud and Tyler Legacy right before he leaves for Oklahoma for his official visit on the 10th. We're going to have that covered, but they'll be taking on the Tyler Legacy squad will be taking on Longview. So obviously Jalen Hill, who's going to be announcing a month from today between Texas A&M, Texas, and I don't know who else. I've just really stopped paying attention to that recruitment. But they also have Taylor Tatum, who is a 4-star running back and has a huge upside Oklahoma offer. We got to watch him in camp. He was really good at the OU camp, and I can't wait to see that battle as well. So, I mean, look, we have OU Insider. The point we're talking about here is we're going to have you guys covered. Parker and I are going to be not only at 2 or 3 high school games a week, we're going to be covering the Oklahoma game as well. So if it means we have to catch a flight from wherever the heck we're at, we do it. And we make sure we're there. We did it last year too. And we're not patting ourselves on the back, but we really think that we're 2 of the hardest working guys on the beat as far as covering recruiting and covering the team. We do everything we can to make sure you guys are fully informed on OU Insider VIP each and every day. And with that, I mean, we have chats. We have class predictions, which I swear I'm going to have one here in the next few days. Like that is my goal is to have that thing done. Gosh, man, it's been so busy. But
hey, when the season rolls around too, 2 podcasts a week plus YouTube Live every Wednesday night.
And videos. We'll do VIP. We're going to do VIP videos as well. The only VIP members get to see. They're going to be unlisted. Anywhere else, you have to be on OU Insider to get those videos. We're going to bring breaking information to you guys each and every day. Look, we've exploded, and that is you guys. Like, as far as our growth, traffic, VIP members, we've never seen anything like it. And we are humble, and thank you guys so much for that, because it's been a whirlwind of the last 3 or 4 months for us, where if you looked where we were at a record high 3 or 4 months ago, and we've crushed it by gaining thousands of members on top of that high. And that is you guys, you Oklahoma Sooners fans. I guess you trust us. You trust us. You trust everything that we bring to you guys, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's podcast, YouTube Live, doesn't matter. You trust us, and we thank you guys so much for that. So right now it's $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards if you want to join us month to month, or you can pay, it's 30% off. $75 will get you 1 year of OU Insider. That means you'll get all the way through the season. You'll get National Signing Day. You'll get during the season to get all the official visits, the unofficial visits, all the recruiting info, the games that we go cover, the OU games we cover as well, team information. We've got tons of team VIP information up there right now. Oh, and I dropped some potential big program information. That it was Matt Parker. Would you consider it massive information that I dropped today on the program?
Can confirm. I would consider that information massive.
Yes, and it's very big.
No pun intended here. Actually, pun fully intended. Groundbreaking.
Oh, groundbreaking. What would that mean? All right. Well, anyways, point being is that it's on OU Insider VIP. Our VIP members know about it. So we have all that type of information for you guys. We have interviews, we have video, we do chats. You want a question, ask us questions, we answer them daily. We answer probably 60, 70 questions a day. And when you do chats, hundreds of questions are answered. So, I mean, literally Parker and I are on there every day, bringing you guys information that you can't find anywhere else. And so we hope you guys join us. $75 will get you right now a whole year. That's a season, all the recruiting information, National Signing Day, both National Signing Days, all the spring visits, all the junior days, the spring practice, all the official visits through June and July, the Champion Barbecue again, the Party in the Palace again. We'll have all those things covered. Then you sign up, you re-up again, and guess what you get on August 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, whatever day you sign up on OU Insider. If you sign up for a whole year, you're with us for 1 year. You get Paramount Plus for free on top of OU Insider and all 250 24/7 sites, VIP sites. Think about that. That is $230+ in value for like $108 after 1 year. So just throwing that out there. If you guys want to do that, we'd love to have you. We hope to have you guys on there. Come say hello to us if you join. But anyways, that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this version of the OU Insider under the Visor Sooners podcast. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed night.